Right, part two. Not bad here, Loctite did that in. So I'm going to have to drill it out. What you can do, so we can carry on for a bit, is there's various ways of doing this. I've removed the top rail. What I'm going to do is take them two out. There's nothing holds the barrel in, just them clamping that to the cylinder. So if I pop them two out now, you can just loosen them, you don't have to take them out. I'm just doing a complete strip down, so I'll have a pile of bits left on the table that I'll have to sift through afterwards. If you just loosen them, you won't have that problem. So those two are out. You'll notice that's the first grub screw I took out, so that's now loose on the barrel. That one isn't because the grub screw's jammed in the top. I'm going to have to drill it. So this whole thing should now pull, slide out, revealing two O-rings. Now that'll slide off your cylinder. Now what I'll do is I'll carry on, I'll leave that in. I'm not going to piss about with that. If I was to take that out, if that was to move out of the way, you would see a dimple in the top of there. That dimple corresponds to 180 degrees. Your transfer port hole there. That's what lines you up with everything. So yeah, it comes in, goes up, goes out, that's it. So next, get the barrel out of the way, let me get the trigger out of the way, and all the rest of the crap out of the way. I'd like to throw it, but there's no room to throw anything anymore. So, cheek piece, should be 2 screws. Again, these, I think these are only, off the top of my head, these are the only 2 countersinks in the whole pile. And they're fairly long. These also hold in not just your cheek piece, but that plate, which allows access to your hammer and everything else. That was it, just fell off. So like I say, that should, if it doesn't fall out, it'll drop out. I'll put my thumb on it for now, finger it. So the cheek piece comes off, then 2 bolts. Plastic cheek piece. If you see Jake, look for Jake Bowman on Facebook. He does the bigger curl-over ones, which are comfier for you. That should now, like I say, drop out, revealing access to all this. What you've got is a pin that holds this in, and that pin you can't get to without removing that grub screw. And if I remember rightly, that bottom one, it allows you, once your hammer's out, which I'll take out shortly, it allows you to push that pin out. So I'll take the hammer out first with a screwdriver. The power adjuster. The O-ring on it should be solely to keep it locked in place so it doesn't move. You know, these things can creep. What you can see there is me dropping it. Is I put 2 Delrin washers on there, and there's your hammer spring. And what that does is allows your hammer spring to spin freely. Doesn't build up torque, because if I take them off, I doubt you'll see it now. It really cuts into there. Can affect your accuracy. Some people call it a tune, call it what we wish. It just makes it a bit smoother, a bit easier. So that'll drop out. In there somewhere is your hammer. I'll concentrate more on getting this probe out now. I can get to this back end. Sorry, went off camera a bit there. So you can see the hole for that pin. So that grub screw needs to come out with the right size Allen key. With the right size Allen key. Oh, I actually got one. Jesus wept. Right. So that rear screw comes out. Oh, bugger me, I haven't got one. Yes, I have. And again, that should be the same size as all the rest, so it doesn't really matter at the back of your trigger block. That now allows you access straight through for that pin, but you need to remove that top one. So you can see, grip screw in the top. It comes out to a short one, put it to one side. What you got there is your top rail, and the one I just took out. They are two different sizes. So I need something long enough to go straight the way up. And push, oh, there she is. Get you on camera a bit. So that goes in the back hole, straight the way through. In that hole you can see, pushes your pin out. Ta-da! Don't lose it. Now that should just flop about. What I need to do now is get that hammer out. It should just pop out. Bloody phone, bear with me. Right, hammer out. What's stopping you at the moment is that sear on the trigger, if you can see it without the camera floating around. And hold it up, the gun was right around, there she is. So the hammer's not coming out past that, so I've got to take the trigger block off, which is only the last two remaining bolts there. Get the right one. There she is. 1, 2. So that takes your sear out of the way. I'll do the strip down of that again, because some people want to see it. So the hammer should now just flop out into my hand. What I've got in there, I've got another 2, focus you fuck. I've got another 2 washers in the bottom of there for the other end of the spring. One of the tunes they do is they polish the ends of the springs, make them nice and flat, so it's got something to spin nicely against instead of digging in. I've also done the, ooh, look at the wear on that. It's not bad. The dowel ring in the end of the hammer that strikes your valve, which quietens it down. Supposedly, it does a little bit. It is good. It's not bad. They do come in brass. They do come in many other things. So what you got now is, put that pin back in. Stupid me. Push the pin out as we did. Sorry, I put it back in. So you're now at the point where that pivot pin, fulcrum pin, should come out. You need a pair of pliers to pull it down. Maybe not, because if I turn my brain on, that pin is held into the probe with a grub screw in the back of there. So I can't get the camera. Sorry, that was me, single shot tray. I can't get the camera down inside the back of there. In the arse end of the probe is a grub screw. Somewhere. So you're now going to tell me it's bloody Imperial. Bear with me. Nope. So I'll back that off. I'll show it when the probe's out. So now I should be able to get hold of that. Pop that down and out. There she goes. Take it straight at the bottom if you want. Or manoeuvre it out. So there's your hammer. That undercut you can see is what the grub screw holds it in. That's all that's for. So remember, that goes on the side of your gun you're looking at. That undercut always goes up into your probe. Screw in the back of the probe will hold it in place. Getting the probe out is not too bad, to be honest. You can see the probe in the bottom there. There's a little spring in the front, and what's holding it in is that block. That block is held in place with that pin, which should push out one way or the other fairly easily. There she is, and drops out. So now, take my Allen key, push it in the back of there. See the probe shot through. The probe passes through that block. That split you can see there is where that pin sat. So that split sits at the very bottom, and your pin will go through that hole under that pin and lock that block in. Stops your spring. There's the spring, and there's your probe. That all falls out the front where the bottle came from, and that is for your probe. There's your grub screw in the back, which locks that pin in for your lever. So like I say, that undercut goes up in there, that grub screw pins it in place. Proby. I think that'll do for part 2. I'll see you in part 3.